This wasn't just a cover up, guys. This was a political coup carried out in broad daylight. And the woman behind it, Jill Biden, not the first lady, the first operator. And today, President Trump, he just busted the entire operation wide open, guys. For years, they told us Joe was sharp, that he was fit to lead. They mocked us. They gaslit us. They shamed anyone who dared to ask, is Joe Biden even running the country? But now the truth is out. A new book calls it a cabal of five led by Jill Biden herself, shielding him, coaching him, and quietly making the calls behind closed doors, guys. And it gets worse. Governor Shapiro says that Jill Biden ripped Biden out of a meeting mid-sentence just to stop him from hearing just how bad the economy was. I can't even make this stuff up. This book is unveiling so much information that was kept in the dark, really. And this is not a first lady, guys. This is a handler. This is a gatekeeper, a shadow president, if you will, guys. So meanwhile, Trump, he's back. And just days ago, he pulled one of the most savage moves that I've ever seen, at least. Maybe you've seen something more savage than this, but basically dimming the lights on the Oval Office to play a genocide expose directly in front of a foreign president. This is a move that Jill's entire cabal would have never let Joe Biden do. But it was real, it was raw, and it was a reversal. So buckle up, guys, because in today's video, we're going to unpack so much. We need to talk about the 5 people who actually ran America during Joe Biden's term, the shocking moments Jill Biden allegedly hijacked power, and we cannot forget about the live confrontation that showed President Trump's very real return to dominance. Plus, of course, what happens next now that the mask is off? Well, guys, this is the political bombshell that they never wanted you to see, but you're about to. If you haven't already, I would totally appreciate it if you hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second. I really appreciate your support. So Jill Biden didn't just whisper in Joe's ear. She actually ruled through him. But now Trump has the receipts and the clock is a ticking. So let's go ahead and start right here, because this isn't just about a failing presidency. We're way beyond that. This is about who really held the power. And there's also some new revelations that were just confirmed, what we have really all been saying all along here. So a new tell-all book buried by most of the media claims that Joe Biden wasn't actually running the country. Now, just drop me a quick yes or no if you think that, if you've always believed that Joe Biden wasn't running the country, and that this revelation isn't really new. So anyway, the revelation from the book is saying that he wasn't leading, he wasn't commanding, he wasn't deciding anything. Instead, the author is actually saying that there were like 5 people pulling the strings. And guess who sat at the top? Jill Biden. That's right, guys. So insiders called her Lady McBiden, kind of a twisted nickname after Lady Macbeth, the woman who whispered in her husband's ear, manipulated power, and pushed him beyond his limits. That's right. Jill allegedly shielded Biden from staff, facts, even his own poll numbers. And trust me, guys, it gets even darker. So you're not going to believe what Jill did when Joe Biden was asked about inflation. So it's wild. So during a meeting with Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro, Biden was asked mid-sentence when Jill suddenly just abruptly cut this man off. Now, keep in mind, he was the president of the United States. Now, you might be wondering, well, why would she do that, right? Because the discussion turned to inflation and the numbers were bad. So the book says Jill physically ushered Biden out the room before he could hear the truth. And this is a direct quote. "We've got to go." That's what she said. And just like that, President of the United States was removed just by his wife. Now, she's supposed to be the first lady. She seems to be a little bit more powerful than that, right? And it didn't even start in the White House. In fact, if we go back to 2019, on an 8-day bus tour in Iowa, Biden couldn't remember the name of his own top advisor, Mike Donlin, the guy who reportedly pulled in a $4 million salary. So you would think that you remember who this guy is, right? That's a pretty chunky salary. I mean, that's way more than what the president of the United States is even paid as a salary. Anyway, so this is a man who had worked with Biden since 2001. So let me ask you this. If Joe couldn't remember the $4 million man, who was really running the campaign, right? So stick with me, because what I'm about to share with you guys, like, we need to really kind of dive deep into this so-called cabal that hijacked the presidency. Who were they? Like how did they do it? And why did America not know, right? Well, I'm going to break that down for you guys right here, right now. Now, there are, the kind of wins that really make it all worth it. And this is one of them. Leslie Taylor, she saved $1,000 a year after switching plans with Chapter. Sharon Bertusik, she just got dropped from Medicaid. But the good news is that Chapter stepped in and found her a Medicare plan with zero premiums, zero medication costs, and copays got cut down to just $20. Like, that is absolutely amazing. Now, if it worked for them, why not you, right? Guys, Chapter checks every single Medicare plan available to help you save money, and they never even charge a fee. It's completely free. You can reach out to Chapter online at askchapter.org/Ron. I'll leave a link in the description down below this video, or you can give them a phone call at 909-563-8279. Guys, give them a call. Like, I want to hear more amazing stories about how much people have saved in my future comments. Anyway, so according to insiders quoted in the book, Joe Biden wasn't even functioning as a CEO of his own presidency. This book, everybody's got to read this book. Maybe I'll read the book on YouTube, and that way you guys don't have to read it. You can just listen. Anyway, one anonymous official called him a senior board member at best. Guys, that is DC code for let him sit in the chair, but he didn't make any real decisions. So imagine electing a president and getting a decorative. Imagine electing a president and getting like a decorative figurehead. You know those little bobbleheads that you have in the cars, whose name was on the building, whose pen was being moved by somebody else's hand. That's basically what we had here, and it gets even more sinister. According to multiple sources, there was a deliberate effort to shield Biden from everything. No access to raw polling data, no exposure to staff concerns, and certainly no candid press events without a script. So it wasn't just about protecting Joe. It was about protecting their control over the Oval Office. Now, this wasn't just bad staffing. This was what legal analysts are now calling constitutional hijack, a soft coup where unelected handlers seize control of executive authority without ever appearing on a ballot. The American people voted for Joe Biden. I didn't, but I'm just saying the American people did in general. But what they ended up getting was Jill Biden and a committee of loyalists who, basically took over the presidency one whisper at a time. So who was in this so-called cabal of five? Well, sources repeatedly point to Jill Biden, of course, as the lead protector and enforcer, Mike Donnellan, the longtime advisor and campaign brain, Ron Klain, who is Biden's former chief of staff, Anita Dunn, messaging and media whisperer, and Ted Kaufman, an old Delaware loyalist who just pretty much kept the gate. These weren't just aides. These were co-presidents operating in secret, deciding the future of the country without consent from the American people. Whew. They got to make a movie out of this, guys. So what we need to talk about is why the media helped cover it all up, because they knew about this. And we need to talk about the viral moment that proves that they knew Joe was not in charge, guys. Stick around, because the deeper we go, the more it all starts to make sense. Now, while Joe Biden, he basically struggled through speeches, wandered off stage, stumbled through basic answers, tripped up and down stairs. They called anyone who questioned his mental state an ableist, right? They mocked average Americans, and they ultimately shamed us into silence. Well, maybe not all of us. But now You got the books, you got the leaks, the confessions, they're all coming out left and right. And it's clear that they knew. Guys, this was a scripted presidency run like a TV show. Every sentence was written by handlers. Every event was tightly controlled. Every reporter was pre-selected, pre-screened. Remember the cheat sheets? The list of reporters with their photos and pre-approved questions? That wasn't leadership. That was a stage play starring a man who often didn't even know where he was or where the stage stairs were. So let's just call it what it was. A premeditated, coordinated deception of the American people. Panelists, and let's not even forget the former insiders, they're now saying that this plan goes back years, well before Biden even stepped into the Oval Office. The signs were there back in 2019. The silence was intentional. The media's role? To protect the con at all costs. And so just when you thought the story couldn't get any more outrageous, President Trump, he walks into the Oval Office, he dims the lights, and he drops a truth bomb on live TV. So just days ago, in a meeting with South African President Cyril Ramaphosa, President Trump did something the Cabal would never have allowed under Biden. He dimmed the lights in the Oval Office, he fired up a multimedia presentation, and he forced the entire South African delegation to watch violent extremist footage tied to genocidal calls from groups like the EFF. No filters, no spin, no handlers pulling him away. Trump went full transparency live. I think at this point, the message was loud and clear. This Oval Office is not run by scripts anymore. And so right after the meeting, Trump didn't hold back. He posted, "They stole the presidency of the United States and put us in grave danger. This is treason at the highest level." And he's not just talking here, guys. Trump is now naming names. Jill Biden, the Cabal, the media, all accused of deliberately covering up Joe Biden's decline and installing a presidency run by proxy. But this wasn't just a dramatic speech. Trump, with the FBI director Kash Patel and Deputy Dan Bongino, they're now unlocking years and years of hidden files. Crossfire Hurricane, declassified. Epstein and intelligence ties, coming out. Biden-era censorship operations, unsealed and heading to Congress. And the storm's just starting, guys. Senators J.D. Vance, Byron Donalds, and Tulsi Gabbard are reportedly leading efforts to open criminal hearings on executive fraud, 25th Amendment abuse, and unlawful concealment of presidential incapacity. Now, this is about to become probably one of the biggest investigations since Watergate. And Jill Biden is at the center of it all. But if you guys thought that the domestic deception was bad, just wait until you see the foreign policy disasters that Jill Biden oversaw while Joe Biden was out of the loop, maybe taking a nap or something. Anyway, so under the Biden-Jill shadow presidency, U.S. foreign policy toward South Africa completely collapsed. I mean, we cut off aid, expelled ambassadors, and watched as South Africa cozied up to America's enemies. Why? Because there was no leadership. And when Trump finally confronted Ramaphosa in person, exposing the situation with footage that Team Biden had ignored for years, the world saw what real leadership looked like again. So now, get this, guys. South Africa is set to host the G20 summit, okay? The G20 summit is a pretty big meeting, guys, and Trump, he's considering not even going. Why? Because of the damage that was done under Jill Biden's rule. During Biden's term, South African media referred to U.S. relations as fractured. And when Trump accused them of basically turning a blind eye to farm attacks and racial violence, they panicked. Now, you think they would have dared test Trump like that if Joe was actually calling the shots? And so here's the shocker. Here is the shocker that didn't get nearly enough airtime under the last administration. Elon Musk says South Africa blocked Starlink from operating because he's white. Can you believe that, guys? Elon Musk, a South African native, Trying to provide internet to rural and underserved communities, shut out. But Biden's team, did they say a word? Not one word. But now Trump is using this very issue to push a new global infrastructure and free speech initiative, proving yet again that he's doing what Biden's cabal refused to do: stand up for Americans and call out corruption anywhere. And now the whispers in DC, they're saying Joe Biden could be facing testimony, maybe even indictment. So we need to talk about what's going to happen to Joe Biden, to those who are around Joe Biden, and more importantly, what President Trump just announced to make sure that this never happens again. So with the walls closing in, Joe Biden is no longer seen as just the first lady who cared for her husband. She's now being viewed as a central figure in what some people are calling the largest domestic deception in modern U.S. history. Guys, whispers are growing in Washington, D.C. Will she be called to testify under oath before Congress? Could she face indictment for obstructing executive governance? Or will she attempt to spin a memoir and rewrite the narrative before the truth fully comes out? Well, either way, I think it's pretty clear that the heat is on, and Trump's DOJ isn't playing defense. President Donald Trump has vowed to make sure that this never happens again. Behind closed doors, sources say he's working on a Presidential Fitness and Transparency Act. This legislation would require annual cognitive assessments for any sitting president, prevent spousal interference in executive matters, mandate real-time congressional access to the president's medical and decision-making status. Because Trump's not just focused on punishing the past. He's locking the doors to prevent future fraud, guys. So drop a quick 47 in the comments down below if you support President Trump's new amendment that he's trying to push through here to prevent this from happening again. Now, they told you Jill was the first lady, right? But the truth, she was the first architect of a shadow presidency that almost broke the country. Now, Trump's back, and Trump is dropping bombs left and right. So share this video before the media buries it, guys. And, let me know what you think in the comments. Should Jill Biden testify before Congress? Should she be forced to testify? Because if you give her the option, of course, she's just going to back out. How about this? Should those 5 insiders face charges? Should they go to jail? And should we pass new laws to stop this from ever happening again? Well, guys, I really appreciate you tuning in on this one. This was a big bombshell, right? Joe Biden was not the first lady. I think she was really the president. And Trump just busted this whole thing wide open. Anyway, guys, be sure to subscribe, share this video, and stay ready because this story is far from over. Be sure to reach out to our friends over at Chapter, see how much money they can save you on your Medicare. I'll leave a link for Chapter down below, and we'll see you next time.